Hello and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today we are going to check in and talk about how to transplant plants grown in water into soil. This is part 2. So right now what I have here for you to show you here is this beautiful hoya that I was growing. I rooted in water. So the plant had water roots, and as I explained in the last video, water roots are not the same as soil roots. So we had to then get the plant to create soil roots so that I could then get the plant into growing in soil. So hoyas and a lot of plants, you can grow them in water for a while. You can grow them hydroponically in water in a jar. This one was, I had started in the jars, you see in the prior video. And but in order to have a bigger, fuller plant, unless a plant is more of a hydroponic plant, you're better off, and a lot of people would prefer to have their plants in soil. So you need to transition into soil from water roots to have the best luck. Could I have just stuck the plant when it had its water roots into some soil and had good luck? Could have, may have, may not have. So if you've had instances where you've grown a plant in water and gotten in water roots and put it in soil and then it died, it could have been because the water roots didn't become soil roots, or the plant didn't create its own soil roots in time for the plant to survive. So you can see here through the glass there various roots, and those are thicker. Soil roots tend to be a lot thicker, and they will be you can even whiter in a way because they are thicker. So those are actually soil roots that started growing once I got the plant into soil. As I showed in the prior video, you gradually add more soil to the jar itself until you're all soil. As you can see, this is all soil now, but there was a period of time during these several weeks here where it was part water and part soil. You need to keep it wet for a while because you need to sustain the plant via the water roots. Once the plant starts to create some of these soil roots, as you can see through here, then those soil roots will take over for the plant, and the water roots actually a lot of times kind of in some regard they will kind of disappear or seem to disappear, almost like they dissolve, and the soil roots take over. Now it's safe to put this plant into a container with pure soil. I've had it for 2-3 weeks now with just all wet soil in there. I can't keep it in here for much longer without risking root rot because there is no drainage hole. So I do need to get it into a pot with drainage holes. I have some pot choices here. As you will know from my videos, I talk about having 2/3 plant to 1/3 pot ratio so that you don't have too much wet soil. Especially with something like this where it has a limited amount of roots. You can see roots, but it does have a limited amount of roots right now. I definitely don't want to put this plant into too big of a pot with lots of soil, lots of wet soil, because what happens is the roots that it does have will rot because there's just too much wet soil. So I have a few choices here. These are going to be interim pots until the plant does grow more roots, and then I will pot it up. As the top of the plant becomes bigger, then I will continue to pot up. So I have these choices here. It's good to have a few choices on hand so when you go to do the repotting, then you're ready and you can put it in one of the pots, right? I do have some drywall tape here, which I use in place of screening on and to cover holes so that the soil doesn't come out later. So I have that available. And I've got my soil. I did pre-moisten this soil, as I talk about in my repotting series. You want to plant in pre-moistened soil, not soggy, but moistened. I also am going to add a little bit of my Green Gourmet houseplant food, which is right here. It is a very mild organic food that really helps your plants grow really healthy. The NPK on it is 322. That's how you can tell when you've got an organic fertilizer as well, that there's low NPK numbers on the package. I have, let's see. Okay, so we've got that. Now also some worm compost is nice to add. The soil that I use is ProMix BX, which I'll put a link for below, but it has some of that, but I also, it's okay to add a little bit more. This plant, it's been growing in this soil for a while, so that's why it's okay to put fertilizer in. If you're a little bit on the iffy side as to if it's time for fertilizer, don't fertilize. Just do a little worm compost, because you definitely don't want to burn those roots. That's why it's so important to use an organic too, with a low NPK, because the roots will burn with the chemical fertilizer very easily. And if you have limited amount, you don't want to burn a whole bunch. The plant's it may not make it. And this plant is actually, as mentioned, been growing for a while. I think it has 2 extra leaves from what it started with when I started this process. Yeah, it's got 7 now. So, okay, so put a little worm compost. This already has some pumice in it, the soil already, but I'm going to put a little bit more because these plants, Hoya carnosa, the wax plant, it's a common name. They do like quick, fast drainage, and I do have a care video for them that I will put a link below for too. Okay, so there you go with that. We've got a really nice soil. The soil's all ready to go. Now, tricky part, how do we get this plant out of here, right? As I show in I do have a video on getting plants stuck in pots out. This is a similar procedure here. If you want something that bends, because we need to get in here and we need to be very gentle about it, and we need to basically unroot this, right? So I've got a plastic knife. Also, this is a knife with a bend that bends, and this is a little bit longer, so you can use something like that too. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to carefully as possible, get this to loosen. Another thing that's very useful too, which should be done actually first, is to give it a lot of good water, because this is going to get it to loosen up as well. And then you've got the water in there, and you've got the cutting along the side. And this is more like not so much cutting the roots, it's basically loosening, getting the plant to loosen from the side of the pot, or I should say of the glass jar. I like to use glass for this procedure because you can see when there are roots that have created themselves there for you. So this is a procedure, as mentioned. It takes a while. It could take you a while. You can also put it upside down as you're working, which may help too, keeping in mind that there are going to be some roots within too, so you obviously need to be very careful. But if you do have a little bit of root loss, it's not going to be, if you've let it sit in the pot for long enough, it's not going to be disastrous for the plant. But it's not easy, this part here, unfortunately. The hope is that you can get it to loosen enough to come out without, you don't want to really pull. So you kind of have to keep working on it, and you may have to pull some soil out as you go. And just keep gently, but also this is something you have to keep working on until you can pull it off. If you can get down below and nudge it out from there, that also helps. More water if necessary. It will break down a little bit the soil itself in there, and that can help loosen it too. So this is one of those things, like everything with gardening, with plants, you need to have a little bit of patience. The pulling and yanking and things don't work, especially when it comes to roots. So we are doing our best here to work that out. You may find you really just have to keep compacting it to get it to come out. But as carefully and slowly as possible. It is starting to come out. So I'm going to take a little bit thicker here and push. Now, you know, I guess another way could be, but I'm not going to do that and encourage it. But you could also break the glass if you can't get it out. You know, obviously do that outside, somewhere over some trash bin or something. But maybe, you know, if you're just having a really hard time, just be very, very careful, obviously. That could be an option. And maybe if you just broke it a little bit or cracked it where you could pull it apart. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Okay, so I'm getting it out of here. Little shaking. There you go. I got it. Now there's a few roots in here, but not that bad. Okay, so we got the plant out. And as you can see, we've still got some really good rooting going on in here. So that is very encouraging. Yay. Okay, now I'm not really going to remove much. I don't want to disturb what roots we have here. I'm going to put it in. This is the deeper one of the pot, so I had a feeling this was going to be a good pot. It doesn't hurt though to try the other ones. This one is a little too short, and I've got roots up top, so I definitely want to have the right in terms of length as well. A lot of times when you do this with the rooting this way, you will have longer roots. So you may need to go find a thinner and longer pot. So it takes a little looking there. It may take you a little looking around there. Okay, so I'm going to set this down in here, and I'm going to put in my screen for the drainage hole. There is a drainage hole at the bottom of this. You do want a drainage hole. As mentioned, that was one of the reasons why we're switching here. And you want to put a little bit of soil on the bottom. And then we're going to put this guy in. And then I'm going to fill around the edges here. And this will be very exciting because this will be a whole new hoya off of a larger hoya that I have. And I have more cuttings to do this with too. So if you do, you can do a whole bunch at once. As I show in the prior video, I had this rooting on a heating mat under full spectrum lighting as well to get it to be nice and healthy. So I'm gently adding the soil around the edges here and then pushing it in. So you don't want to like cram, but you do want to be fairly firm with this whole thing. When you're done, you do want at least very bare minimum 1/8 of an inch, preferably 1/4 of an inch around the inside rim, so that when you water, the water doesn't rush over and not get into the soil. That can be a problem if you have the soil up too high, and that's why it's really important to find the right size pot so that you're not trying to force something. As mentioned too, you want the right size pot in terms of the plant plant pot ratio, so that the 2/3 plant to 1/3 pot, which this is just very close to. Another really good, especially with this procedure here, good rule of thumb ratio is to have 2/3 root to 1/3 pot. So the roots fill up the pot by 2/3, and then the 1/3 is actually the soil, then the soil is the other 1/3, which is what I did with this, as you saw. So that's another good ratio, these rules of thumb, so that you get a good plant combination that's really good for the plant. We're going to check in with this plant too after a few weeks of growth. See, it got some new leaves. Once you do this and the plant starts putting on new growth, that tells you that the plant has adjusted to its pot, and it is acclimated to its situation, and that it is starting growing, and that you successfully did convert from water roots to soil roots. I'm cleaning off the pot a little bit. My my gloves are dirty. Now you also want to, every time after you pot up, you always want to water the plant, even though you use moist soil. The reason you use moist soil is if you use dry soil and you pot up, once you water, the plant will sink in the pot, and then you're going to have a situation where the plant is too deep in the pot, which is not a good situation. So I'm watering. You want to water until the water starts. This is water. I watered a little bit where it's coming over the edge, but also wait until the water comes out the bottom of the pot, which it's starting to do here, I believe. Okay, good. Yes. So we got it nice and watered. If you want to make sure, you could put it back on the heating mat for a little while longer to create more roots. However, at this point, once it does have some good strong soil roots, you can just put it in its permanent location, say by a window or under full spectrum lighting, which hoya do need a bright light. So as mentioned, we will check back in, and now that this plant has become an official plant, that I have gotten to the next stage here, we are going to name her. So she is Shelly. So this is Shelly. So I say hi to Shelly. We will check back in with Shelly as mentioned and see how she's doing in a month or two. And in the meantime, we'll take good care of her and watch her grow. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.